Well, here we are again, everybody. I thank you so much for joining me once again. Still trucking along in the deep dark void, and more stories to read. And I must say, this is quite the spicy one that I have for you. I will try to keep this as YouTube friendly as possible, but just so you know, viewer discretion is advised. How would you feel if an in-law of your significant other had begun to make indirect and also direct sexual advances towards you? On top of the unbelievable awkwardness that would be happening in those moments, you try and muster up the strength to let your significant other know what has been going on, and then to be quietly brushed off as if it was not that big of a deal, and just to suck it up for a little while more. How would you react? How would you feel? Well, our OP will let us know his take on a story that pretty much happened just like that. So fasten your seatbelts, everybody, and get your fire extinguishers ready, because we're about to dive in. My mother-in-law is trying to seduce me, and I can't take it anymore. Throwaway, because obviously, I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 24F, for about 2 years. My wife didn't have a good relationship with her mother, 39F, growing up, and has called her by many names, including man-eater, one-drink whore, town's favorite slut, and a lot worse. Wow, so as you can see, our OP's mother-in-law, reputation precedes her apparently. About a year ago, we talked about having kids, and she wasn't completely on board with the idea even though she wanted kids. After discussing it with her therapist, my wife decided to at least try to have some sort of relationship with her mother. At the time, mother-in-law was homeless and was crashing on different couches, if not sleeping with someone. Mother-in-law convinced my wife to let her stay at our place for a few weeks, as it would be easier for them to hash things out. I didn't like the idea, but agreed because my wife wanted it. She also assured me that she would kick her mother out if she does anything out of line. My wife also barred her from bringing any of her partners into our home. I work from home and my wife works from her office, so I've spent a lot more time with the mother-in-law than my wife has. Mother-in-law is a very different person from my wife. My wife is very conservative, gracious, and well-mannered. Mother-in-law is a slob who doesn't like to put on clothes. Mother-in-law mostly hangs out in her lingerie, not ordinary underwear, most of the time, and doesn't like covering up for anybody. My wife spends a lot of effort in dressing up at home, even if she has no plans to go out or meet anyone. My wife asked me to ignore mother-in-law's behavior because my wife isn't interested in changing her mother's behavior, just repairing their relationship. Well, if I may, to this humble commander, it seems to me like OP's wife and her mother-in-law have this rocky relationship due to mother-in-law's behavior. Do you agree? Soon, weeks became months, and my wife and mother-in-law did get closer. During the same time, I had to put up seeing her naked every morning when she makes her coffee. A lot of inappropriate touching and contact between me and mother-in-law. A lot of dirty talk and cringe-worthy suggestions about my relationship with my wife and general lack of boundaries shown by mother-in-law. At the same time, my wife has picked up some of mother-in-law's habits, like wearing underwear around the house, and has been more sexually proactive than before. My wife always defended her mother and asked me to just tolerate her for
a little more time.
I used to tell my wife everything that her mother would do to me, but eventually she knew what was happening and stopped discussing it. On many occasions, mother-in-law has explicitly stated her desire to hook up with me, among a lot of other sexual desires. Damn, OP. This is a tough spot you're in. Your mother-in-law doing all this weird stuff to you and your wife not really caring? Mother-in-law's ass should be out on the street if you ask me, because apparently to this commander, the streets be calling. Last week, I woke up to loud sounds coming from the living room in the middle of the night. I went out to find mother-in-law pleasuring herself on the couch while porn played on the TV. I should have left immediately, but I stayed to watch. Oh dear. Eventually, our eyes met and kept the eye contact till she finished. I wasn't sure how to tell my wife about it, so I didn't mention it to her. Since then, mother-in-law has been way more aggressive with her sexual advances and suggestions, often rubbing her body against mine under various pretense. I have talked to my wife about getting mother-in-law a different place, and she has asked me for another month. Sheesh, OP. Maybe this was the time you should have dropped that little information bomb on your wife. That probably would have gotten her attention. But just to be clear, with everything that has gone on and the information that you have tried to share with your wife, she is definitely not innocent in this really rough situation that you are put in, man. In my humble opinion. Yesterday while I was working, mother-in-law walked into my home office naked and forcibly sat on my lap and forced her tongue down my neck. And the plot thickens. I felt really aroused and mother-in-law gave me a hand with my erection and I didn't resist. She then proceeded to go to my bedroom and called me to join her. I was ashamed of what happened and I just left the apartment. I came back after my wife returned. I haven't told her about this, but I can't take it anymore. I am uncomfortable with mother-in-law's advances and feel disgusted with what happened between us. Well, as far as good old CB is concerned, yes, OP, you might have effed up there. And it's easy to say that if you're on the outside looking in. But damn, you put up with so much shit leading up until this point. You tried. You really tried to let your wife know what was happening and how uncomfortable you were with everything. But instead of listening to your pleas, your wife just brushed it off and kept asking for more time. Textbook sexual assault in my opinion, people. Well, anyway, that's enough from me. How about we see what the community has to say about all this? First up, by Beard and Throne. It's almost like this story is fake. Well, Beard and Throne, can't say I disagree with you there. It almost sounds like a video you might find on a certain website that rhymes with Storm Shroud. Anonym's F43 follows up. True or not, this sounds super gross. Boundaries/rules should have been set up first thing. Nothing mentally, emotionally, or physically healthy in this situation. The mother-in-law is a diseased time bomb. Nailed it, Anonym's F43. Original Skin follows up. The eye contact might have been a stunt lock moment. I lays chips. Honestly, I would have been stun locked too. Not in an aroused kind of way, but more of a what the shit is going on and what do I do about this kind of way. The constant shame, gaslighting, and normalization of shitty behavior probably didn't help either. Yes indeed, I lays chips. You certainly laid the smackdown in this reply. And here's a reply from Radio America. Real or not, this person was being pressured and coerced relentlessly. According to this story, she is a predator. While I know we all make our own decisions, I also know the coercion and pressure put on him in this case is really messed up. If I told my husband that his dad kept saying inappropriate remarks to me, rubbing up on me, invading my personal space all the time, he would act on it the first time and help me put an end to it. I am upset for OP that he's being preyed on in his own home and his partner is just letting it happen. People tend to get confused about male sexual assault because of boners. So let me be entirely clear. The way your body reacts is not a reflection of your actual feelings when you're being raped or molested. OP was sexually assaulted after months of harassment and assault. There's nuance to all of it, but at the core, it's not fair to blame someone for what happens when they endure this torment and straight up torture for months on end with no help from anyone. Men are supposed to want it, which adds another layer of weird guilt/shame for victims. Yeah, it's fucked up and he needs to cop to it to his wife. But she stood by and did not protect him when he needed it. Damn, Radio America. That's about as clear cut as can be. You are absolutely right. If this script was flipped and it was a father-in-law instead of a mother-in-law in all of this, then best believe father-in-law and husband would certainly deserve some boots to asses and then a shared prison cell to follow. But no, since it's just little old mother-in-law, it's not as bad, I guess. Anyway, let's keep going. And it looks like we got an update from the OP. Update. My mother-in-law is trying to seduce me. I told my wife everything that happened, everything I felt and how I screwed up. She was shocked and shattered. She started sobbing, and when I tried to console her, she told me to leave her alone. She told me that she was disgusted just looking at me. I packed up some of my stuff and left. I will be staying in a hotel for a few days. OMFG. So it's all his fault apparently, according to OP's wife. Despite all the pleading and the begging up until this point. Again, yes, he could have made a different decision in the moment, but nobody's perfect. And he did come clean. Apparently mother-in-law had nothing to do with it though. At least that's what it sounds like from this update. I'm sure the community has lots to say, so let's go and check it out. From No Bodybuilder 8055. I hope she also chucked the mother out. I hope so too. Ginger Psycho 94. I hope she cut her off. End of story. And we got a good one from Allied Cola. Okay, let's reframe this. His wife knew this as well, and she still ignored her husband when he raised concerns over mom's behavior. And she also refused to kick her mom out. This situation shouldn't have even happened because his wife should have had some common sense, like a normal adult. Like,
oh golly gosh, my mom tries to fuck all my partners. Better let her back into my life and then let her sexually harass my husband. Haha, gee whiz. Better not listen when my husband gets increasingly uncomfortable with my mom trying to fuck him. Ha! Well, dearie me, my husband isn't talking to me about it anymore. I guess ignoring the problem made it go away. I love my mom so much. Whoopsie doopsie. My husband ended up cheating on me. How could he do this to me? I'm shocked. I tell you, shocked. Crying face emoji.
Perfectly laid out, Allied Cola. Perfectly laid out. Twinkles for 4 follows up. Wife is probably a victim of her mom's emotional abuse and manipulation. She can't or won't see what her mom is truly like. She wants things to be normal. Not saying I agree with it, just a possible viewpoint. Well, Twinkles for 4, in the original post, the OP did say that his wife had a bunch of nicknames for her mom, but over time, the more they hung out, the OP's wife started to inherit a lot of those very toxic behaviors of her mother. In my opinion, definitely contributing to the big pile of shit that the OP is currently stuck in and is trying to dig his way out of. And let's open it up for one final comment from Grimwall. Everyone saying he cheated, including his wife, is probably the grossest part of this to me. He spent literal months being sexually battered and he was told to suck it up. Any abuse victim would either have a severe outburst or fold. He folded. By the time they had the eye contact encounter, Mom knew she had him and he wasn't going to defend himself. Even watching her was just giving her what she wanted and letting it roll off of him. He didn't fuck her then, he didn't fuck her in the study. If there was any desire there at all, mother-in-law would have been wide open to it. There was none. It was not like he wanted any of it. It just happened to him and he let it because he knew he wasn't going to win. He just had to suck it up and bear through it because his wife asked. And likely because he'd look like less of a man if he broke down over it, which is exactly what took place in both encounters. There are 4 responses to a threatening situation: fight, flight, fawn, freeze. He froze and fawned. The two often go together and most don't recognize this. He let her sexually assault him because after several months of it, no one was going to stop it from happening anyway. He just let her do what she wanted and ran when it was over. This sounds like rape to me. Bullseye. If it doesn't sound like rape to you, then you don't have the breadth of thought to be judging this man and probably anyone else in this situation. Edit. Even amongst rape victims, eventually they internalize the abuse and let it warp their sexuality if it keeps happening without reprieve. Sometimes even the very first time. Their mind tricks them into leaning into and enjoying the experience so they get out of it without being too traumatized to function. I also completely agree this is a clear-cut case of Reddit failing male rape victims spectacularly. If this was a woman, the response would not be the same. Damn, Grimwall, keep dropping those truth bombs, man. So I say it again. You should be ashamed if you blamed him. If there was a microphone, now is the time to drop it. Thank you once again, Grimwall, for that awesome reply. The sad truth is, by and large, for the vast majority of men, this is the double standard that we have to put up with. But obviously, there are a lot of people nowadays that are starting to see through this. But anyway, that's gotten hot and heavy enough for me. And this is where I leave you all. Thank you so much once again for joining me. I really hope you had a good time. I sure did. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. You know where it's at. Until next time, friends. CB is signing off. 07.